The young man calmly asked the prince to raise his head, acknowledging that all responsibility for what had happened lay with him. There was no reproach or fear in his voice, only a determination to take the blame. The girl, lying in bed with a bandaged forehead, gently admitted that it was she who had caused the alarm that had gripped the entire castle. The young man responded with restraint, claiming that it was he who deserved an apology. Violetta, who had regained her memories of her past life, tried to maintain the haughty image of an arrogant 8-year-old noblewoman. At that moment, she was suddenly struck by the realization that she had missed something important. Noel, remembering his simple life before the transformation, realized that he could no longer afford his former arrogant behavior. He awkwardly apologized to the maid for accidentally bumping into her by turning around too abruptly. The girl, beaming with genuine kindness, assured him that it was just a scratch, nothing to worry about. Noel nevertheless admitted that a wound on his forehead could leave a scar, and regretfully apologized for the harm caused. With a slight smile, she brushed a strand of hair from her forehead and explained that the wound would be easily covered with her bangs. At this time, the frightened maid behind her froze in alarm, not expecting such a reaction. Noel listened carefully to the words that, although he was indifferent to his injury, for others his position in society could change dramatically. The consequences could even affect the issues of future marriage. The boy's thoughts raced to the possible difficulties. In a society reminiscent of medieval Europe, such a scar would have been an obstacle. But now that everything had changed, he saw it as a minor annoyance, while she rested peacefully in bed. Lying on the pillow, the girl thought about how burdensome the aristocratic life could be. Lost in thought, she stared blankly into space until someone called her name, and she belatedly responded. An elderly man entered the room and asked if she was happy with the proposed solution. She sheepishly admitted that she had missed the gist of the conversation, but nodded in agreement. The man promised to return when her condition improved. He asks the prince to raise his head and declares that he takes full responsibility for what happened. The girl apologizes for the inconvenience, but he replies that he should be the one apologizing. Violetta decides to continue playing the role of a haughty 8-year-old aristocrat when forgotten memories return, while another character suddenly remembers an important detail. Noel realizes that due to his commoner background, he can no longer act arrogantly, and apologizes to the maid for the confrontation. The girl calmly says that it is just a scratch, but the young man admits that a wound on the forehead can leave a scar. She explains that the scar can be easily hidden behind her bangs and does not consider it a problem, while the maid is amazed at her indifference. Noel is reminded that even a minor injury can affect his reputation and marriage prospects. He reflects that in medieval aristocratic society, this would have been considered serious, but now it only causes irritation while she lies in bed. The girl notes how complicated the secular world is, but she is brought out of her reverie by a voice repeating her name. The man asks if the proposed solution is suitable. She agrees without delving into it, and he promises to visit her later when her condition improves. The girl woke up with difficulty, stretched lazily, and admitted to herself that she had not yet had enough sleep. She was about to fall asleep again when suddenly the maid ran into the room, called out to her, and, without waiting for an answer, unexpectedly congratulated her. After which the maid, beaming with joy, began to explain that the girl was engaged to Prince Gerald. According to the law of their kingdom, it was the king who chose the heir, and Gerald, as the third prince with outstanding character traits, had every chance of getting the throne. The maid, not hiding her enthusiasm, squeezed the girl's hands and congratulated her again on her engagement. Her voice was full of enthusiasm, and her face was full of genuine joy, leaving no time to comprehend what she had heard. Then she added that the girl, as the future wife of the prince, could well become the future queen. The girl, stunned by all this, barely found the strength to ask again if she had heard wrong. In response, the maid confirmed her words with a confident smile, stating that everything had already been decided. At this time, the girl and another person present looked at each other, wondering whose engagement they were talking about. When the confusion reached its limit, a loud scream was heard throughout the castle. Someone called Katarina anxiously, trying to bring her back to reality after what she had heard. The girl, tired of the fuss, asked to be left alone, citing poor health. Left alone, she admitted to herself that she could not directly refuse the engagement, because everyone around her was happy, and she herself was not thrilled with the idea of the prince taking responsibility for a minor bruise. Then she reflected that Gerald was only 8 years old, and perhaps in their world that was not too young for an engagement. She already hated preparing for her social debut, but if fate demanded that she become queen, she would accept it. Looking in the mirror, the girl noticed with cold observation that she had become noticeably more beautiful compared to her previous life. However, her gaze directed upwards gave her face sharp features, making her look almost like a typical antagonist of an otome game. Lying on her bed, she smiled bitterly, remembering that she had died without finishing the very otome game she had bought shortly before her death. Everything that was happening reminded her of the plot that she had not managed to complete back then. The girl lay face down on the bed, feeling tired after the difficult route and conflicts with the prince and the annoying childhood rival. Despite everything, she walked this path, mentally calling the prince cruel and cunning. After which, she thought about the name of the villain from the otome game that all this seemed too familiar with, and suddenly remembered that Prince Gerald had been engaged since childhood. As the realization became clearer, she jumped up abruptly and, trembling, looked into the mirror, trying to understand why her face seemed so alien to her. The outlines in the reflection left no doubt. Then the name of the rival heroine popped into my memory. Katarina Clays. A page from the game's reference book confirmed the terrible thing. It was she, the heroine in this body, who was the villain. Hearing the hysterical scream, the maids began to whisper and suggested that they should show the girl to the doctor again. The panic in the next room made them worried. When things calmed down a bit, the girl began writing down, convincing herself that the similarities with the otome game did not yet confirm their identity. She carefully wrote down everything she remembered about Fortune Lover. The notes stated that the game had a simple love story focus and was set in a world with magic and swords reminiscent of medieval Europe. The story began with training at a magic academy, after which she remembered that at the age of 15, those with a magical gift began their initiation, and almost all magicians came from noble families. Commoners with a gift were extremely rare. Among the 5 types of magic, light magic was considered the most powerful. The game's heroine is a commoner who possesses this unique element, which makes her an exception to the general rule. In the end, she remembered the prince himself. Gerald Stewart seemed outwardly fabulous, but he had a sophisticated mind and was bored with the ordinary. On the eve of her death, she remembered, she had finally won his heart. Keith Clays is introduced as Katarina's half-brother, the family's adopted son who possesses powerful earth magic. Due to the cold attitude of his stepmother and sister, he grew up alienated and dissolute. Then comes Nicholas Ascart, Gerald and Alan's childhood friend, the Prime Minister's son, whose magic is in the wind. He is reserved and quietly charming. After which, the story returns to Katarina Clamace, the canonical rival of the main character, whose fate is associated with only 2 outcomes: exile or death. After studying the possible scenarios, the girl notices that even in a happy ending, the heroine is banished, and in a bad one, she dies, sometimes at the hands of Gerald, overcome with jealousy. Then she is shocked by the discovery. In each of the lines, be it the harem finale or the path with Keith, only death or exile awaits Katarina. There are no exceptions. Understanding the scale of the threat, the heroine realizes that if this is really the world of the otome game, her fate is predetermined. However, her internal protest does not allow her to resign herself to it. When doubts overwhelm her mind, she continues to write feverishly and then rushes to the bookshelves. The maids confirm that everything she fears is true. Sitting on the bed, surrounded by stacks of volumes, the heroine decides firmly. She is not going to accept the terrible end in silence. Then she remembers her old life, short and suddenly cut short. This time she wants to live to old age, in silence, with a cat on her lap, without drama and threats. After which the council begins. Several of her inner selves gather around the table to develop a strategy for saving themselves from the catastrophic endings of Katarina Clays. One of the meeting participants asks if anyone has a plan. Katarina suggests breaking off the engagement with Gerald first to avoid a disastrous scenario. The woman with the ribbon in her hair agrees, but the other reminds them that the engagement was initiated by the prince himself, and their entire family is genuinely happy about it. Then she asks if they can really refuse. Katarina suggests not to enter the academy, so as not to encounter the main character, and not to get involved in the events of the game. To which she is told, studying at the academy is mandatory for everyone who has magical abilities, and Katarina's awakening was at the age of 5. Afterwards, someone points out that such a refusal is impossible, even for a spoiled daughter. Katarina angrily blames the situation on the weak earth magic, and the maid points out that everything should go well if they don't poison the main character. It is further specified that the groom is a cunning prince, and in the game it was he who intimidated the heroine's entourage. Katarina fears that she could cause her own death if she is considered a burden. Meanwhile, the boy in the illustration defends her from false accusations. The participants of the discussion express fear. They may face exile without means of support. One of the characters tries to stop the panic and calls on everyone to calm down. Katarina suggests that if they are going to face Gerald, they should at least improve their fencing skills. The others enthusiastically agree, emphasizing that it will help them not die too quickly. Then Katarina suggests that if they are banished, magic will help them survive. However, one of the girls doubts this, because Katarina has weak earth magic, and there are almost no mages in other countries. Then they remember that in the original game, Katarina was self-centered, always running after Gerald and not developing her abilities. After that, they come to the conclusion that if they improve their magical skills and find a use for them, they will be able to find a job even without a title. In the finale, Katarina encourages everyone to give it their all and expresses confidence that they will now be able to use their magic properly. The girl confidently states that everything is going according to plan and confirms the general mood of the team, after which she suggests focusing on honing fencing and magic, to which the others respond approvingly. After some time, she reports that she has found a fencing teacher and is actively training, adding that now she needs to take up magic. Then, while reading a book about magic, she learns that in order to develop powers, it is necessary to interact with a source of magical energy, and she ponders the meaning of the word interaction. Comparing her powers with the game's heroine, she concludes that her magic is useless, as it can only slightly lift the ground and trip up. After this, she decides to improve her abilities, and assumes that since her magic is related to the earth, she needs to interact with the soil, although the meaning of this concept is unclear to her. When the maid asks about her mistress's actions, she replies that she plows the land to strengthen her magic. The girl remembers that this is part of the training process. The girl explains that the source of her magic is the earth, and it is with it that she needs to contact, referring to what she read in the book. Remembering her grandmother's words about how cultivating the soil strengthens the connection with the land, she decides to master magic before entering the academy in order to survive and earn money after possible exile. Finally, the maid notices that constantly digging the earth is a dubious way to develop magic, although the girl herself continues to wave the tool. The maid asks to wait, explaining that Lord Gerald has arrived at the mansion. The young man interrupts, stating that now is not the time. There is urgent business. The maid reacts, stunned. She then hurriedly tells the hooded girl that she must return to the mansion immediately to prepare for the official engagement. The girl is perplexed and asks a question. The young man asks her what she is doing with a smile and compares her actions to those of an angel. A crowd approaches the group, citing rumors of magic training, after which the maid notes to herself that Gerald is not just a prince, but calculating and cruel, and now she perceives him as nothing less than the devil, despite his calmness. The girl politely apologizes to Gerald for the meeting place. He explains that he trains magic by interacting with the earth. She decides to keep up. She then briefly explains that plowing the field is the best way to contact the earth. The young man confirms that he has understood her method. He starts to tremble, and the girl assumes that she has angered him and that she might be exiled before she even enters the academy. She thinks the same thing out loud. However, he admires the training method. The maid notices that he is not angry and addresses the girl by name. Gerald apologizes for having to talk about the engagement in such a place and asks to be formally accepted. Then he takes her hand, kisses it, and she silently watches what is happening, still holding the hoe in her other hand. He reproaches himself for his hasty consent, and she regrets that she did not refuse, considering herself unsuitable. After which one of the women announces her as the official bride of Prince Gerald. Those around her applaud, and the girl silently accepts what is happening. The young man decides that from tomorrow onwards, he will have to put more effort into training his sword and magic. The girl then remembers that, after hitting her head, she gained memories of a past life in which she played an otome game that coincides with this world. She explains that her fate is to be banished or killed by one of the target characters, as she was the heroine's rival in the game. The young mage believes that with his current level of training, he will be able to confront Gerald and become rich in another country after his exile. The girl greets her father and solemnly declares that she will remove all the flags of destruction and live a prosperous life. The others support her with shouts. The father then explains that after her engagement, there is no one else to continue the Clatter's line, so he decided to adopt a child from a collateral branch. The girl quietly announces that from this day on, the boy will become her half-brother. The boy then introduces himself as Keith and asks her to take care of him like an older sister, while her inner voice warns, A new flag of destruction has appeared. Katarina introduces herself, while the man notes that the arrival was earlier than expected, and she herself realizes the lack of a plan. She then explains that Keith Clays is her adopted brother and capture target, lacking the appeal of the game's image but meeting expectations for cuteness. The boy says he always dreamed of having a younger brother, despite the flag of destruction and the bad ending, and now Keith will be part of their family. After this, the man orders Kit to be taken care of. The young man pretends to be attentive, and the woman confirms the order by saying goodbye to him. Katarina opens the secret folder and reads that Keith Class grew up alone. When she learns his past, it turns out that Keith was born from a concubine, was persecuted, discovered magic, but his brother suffered, and he was exiled. Then, due to his magical abilities, he was adopted by Duke Clays, but he was treated coldly in the house. The servants did not interfere, and Keith withdrew into himself. As an adult, he began to behave like a ladies' man to hide his loneliness. Later, turning the page, Katarina learns that the heroine became the first person Keith truly loved, and she herself hated her for getting closer to the ducal family. The diagram then shows the options. Keith does not protect the heroine, Katarina hurts her, Keith falls into despair, or kills Katarina and disappears, which leads to her exile. Fictions. She then comes to the conclusion that all endings are equally fatal, and decides to urgently hold a new strategy meeting. A second emergency meeting is called to avoid Katarina Clays's doom flag, where she suggests increased training in magic and swordsmanship, as the current threat is similar to Gerald's endings. She then clarifies that swords are useless this time, because the outcome will be determined by magic, and their enemy has powers sufficient to join the main family. The female voice points out that the enemy is their relative, and their own magic is limited to a dull blow to the ground, so victory is impossible no matter how hard they try. After which, one of the girls states the need for immediate action, while another panics, not knowing what to do, and the third asks to remain calm. The young man, clenching his fist, says that he must act himself, despite the fact that his dream of having a younger brother recently came true. Then Martha suddenly suggests a radical solution. Put him in a cardboard box and leave him under a bridge, with a sign nearby that says, "Please take me home." The girl objects to such a cruel measure, but another assures that this is the only way, and at this moment the third raises her hand asking for a suggestion. She then comes up with an idea. Since Keith falls in love with the heroine because of loneliness, it's worth simply surrounding him with attention to prevent this from happening. The bespectacled participant confirms that if Keith does not fall in love, Katarina will escape death, and everyone calls her a genius, and then the boy wonders how exactly to relieve his loneliness. In response, he offers to be constantly near him, after which the three girls happily agree. Now, they will be able to show care to the fullest extent. The girl offers to take care of a new brother named Keith Clays, and the others support the idea, after which a meeting begins to prevent the doom flag. Then she calls Keith and says that she will show him the garden because the weather is nice today. The boy politely thanks them, after which they explain to him that he had not seen the garden because he had been on holiday the day before, and he agrees. When he calls her formally, the girl demands to be called sister because they are now family, and then happily declares that she is lucky to have a younger brother. She shows him a lake where he can fish, and then points to her favorite spot in the field. As they approach the tree, she says that there is a great view from there, and adds that in a past life she was a master climber, after which she offers to show them how to climb. She falls from the tree and lands on Keith, after which she notices a slight pain, but thinks that everything is not so bad, and screams at him not to die. The boy then tells her that he is okay, even though she is crushing him with her body. And the girl, in a panic, does not listen. He explains that Keith was lucky and wasn't badly hurt, and the girl says that she was scared when she heard about the fall, but is glad that everything is okay. After which the servant meets the prince and says that Katarina is waiting for him, and the girl says that his parents were especially close today, to which he replies that he fell only because of excessive excitement. The boy explains that after the misunderstanding about his origins was resolved, his mother changed her mind about getting a divorce, and the family became happy. The two girls then discuss the sword training, one of them noting how hard her sister worked. The girl wonders why the farm was created, and the boy begins to explain. When he thinks that the field was supposed to enhance the magic, the result is weak, and he notices that something is wrong. She then asks if Keith really does have strong magical abilities, and is surprised to hear confirmation. She then muses that she could use earth golems to make money if she were banished, like the character in the game, but she doesn't know how to create them yet. The girl with horns asks if Keith can do it, and asks him to show her at least a little. and he reluctantly agrees. When he explains that he can make the golem move with magic, she is amazed, and he adds that he can increase their size by putting more power into them. The children are then amazed by the giant water figure, and the girl calls Keith a genius, after which she asks him to make her move like the little ones, and he reluctantly agrees, promising to do only a little. The boy rushes towards the girl with interest, wanting to feel the power of real magic. She warns her older sister not to come closer because of the danger, but she comes anyway, after which the girl calls her name in a panic. The woman reports that the girl has a bump on her head and a bruised back, adding that she was hit by Keith's earth golem, and the man, crying, asks how she is feeling, but she asks him to let her go. The girl then explains that Keith called her name when she was hurt, and the woman explains that after the doctor told her everything would be fine, Keith locked himself in his room, and the other girl asks how he is now. The woman explains that Keith has strong magic, but does not know how to control it, so they hired a mentor and forbade him from using his powers until training began. The man admits that he had kept silent about this earlier, and the girl recalls how inattentive she was to her father's words. While discussing this, they remember that Keith once traumatized his family, and now realizes the danger of his magic, which surprises the others. The girl explains that Keith broke his promise and harmed his sister, but accepted all the blame and punishment, and then another character tells her not to approach the dangerous golem, admitting that the girl ignored the warning. The man thanks Katarina for the explanation and says that he does not intend to punish anyone, but she insists that she is ready to take responsibility. Suddenly realizing the seriousness of what happened, she reacts sharply. But the man orders her to rest and reminds her that she has been too active lately. The man calls out to Katarina, but she runs away, saying she needs to apologize to Keith, while a girl nearby insists she needs to rest. After which the other girl asks to be let inside, wanting to talk, but the sister replies that she is fine and asks about her wounds. The girl turns away from the door, saying that she can no longer stay near her older sister, and she asks in surprise what the reason is. The girl then starts knocking on the door, worried that Keith now hates her and has locked himself in again, begging him to open it. She remembers how Keith, having withdrawn into himself, went to school alone, met a heroine who cured his loneliness, they fell in love with each other, and Katarina interfered with them, after which Keith was expelled and died from magic. At this point, the maid reports that she cannot get inside. Keith has locked the door, and the blind girl asks what is going on, while a voiceover warns that all this will lead to disaster. The maid adds that if someone really wants to get in, they can try through the servants' room, and the second one notices that Keith is acting very strangely. Then someone calls her and asks about the master key, and the girl sits on the floor, hugging her knees, silently. The maid bursts in and tells Violetta that Keith is inside and can lock himself in again, after which she takes an axe and, despite her protests, prepares to break down the door. She demands that Keith move away from the door, claiming that she must stop the destruction, to which he asks her to calm down. The maid calls out to her mistress, while the girl in the dress swings an axe with force, preparing to break down the door. After which, one of the girls hastily apologizes to her sister for forcing her to use magic and ignoring the warning about the golem. The second one is perplexed as to why Violetta is apologizing, since she was the one who behaved badly, but Violetta asks for forgiveness for making her worry. The boy then admits that he cannot control magic and often causes harm, even to his sisters, and asks if that is not scary. The girl asks if her sister will stay with her, and she offers to train together as soon as a mentor appears, adding that if magic doesn't work, you just need to continue. After this, she calmly asks if Keith was hurt and asks him not to lock himself in the room anymore. A girl with short blonde hair smiles through her tears and thanks her sister, who asks in surprise what she is doing. The masked man then calls the woman to talk, despite her objections, and another masked man offers to discuss everything in detail as the sky rapidly darkens. The girl thanks her father for the new dress and her mother for the etiquette books, after which she receives congratulations on her 9th birthday. She then expresses gratitude to Keith for the flowers, but the man explains that the bouquet was from him. The women celebrate the completion of their plan to prevent Keith's tragic fate, with Violetta explaining that she cares for her younger brother to prevent him from becoming isolated and facing a devastating future. Then one of the girls enthusiastically remarks that the weather today is perfect for working in the fields. Noel thanks Gerald for the watermelon seedlings, explaining that his magic mentor taught him how to interact with the earth through cultivating the field, which became his hobby. After this, the girl ponders where to start the work, while the boy hesitates between giving her a necklace or new seeds, knowing her preferences. The girl suddenly screams and then falls to the ground, causing concern among those around her. She explains that only the plants she tended herself look weak, unlike those tended by the gardener, and then points to several withering beds. Two boys encourage her and suggest taking a break, while she remembers how in a past life she accidentally killed many plants. The young man politely assures the woman that he will take care of the bride. After all, Katarina is his official bride, and the woman notes to herself how quickly trust has been established between them, while thinking about the fate of the vegetables. The man tries to get the girl's attention by asking if it is possible to revive plants, but she chews absent-mindedly and gives an evasive answer. After which another announces an invitation to a tea ceremony in honor of the 9th birthday, and the woman sharply demands that Katarina stand up, categorically rejecting participation, while the girl recalls the age norms of a social debut. The girl eats sloppily, to which one of those present remarks on her lack of manners, but immediately adds that training at a real table is a good way to learn, especially considering that the tea party is being hosted by relatives. The man then offers to take Keith along. The woman agrees, believing that it will be a great place to debut, and someone else hopes that the girl will learn something. She voices the thought that she could go with her older brother, and feels relieved. With Keith nearby, everything will be calmer. Upon arrival, the three girls politely thank Katarina and Keith for their visit and participation in the tea party being held at their home. Violetta greets the guests, explaining that the younger girls are the Hunt sisters, and names 14-year-old Lilia, who will soon make her debut in society. Katarina, introducing herself and her younger brother, expresses gratitude for the invitation, and Lilia replies that she is glad to meet them. The confused girl introduces herself as Mary Hunt, the fourth daughter, while the other, flattered by her beauty, quickly identifies herself as Katarina and clarifies that she has been told to speak little and be careful. After this, one of the women clarifies whether the woman in front of her is really Katarina from the Clemesis family and invites her to a conversation, while the other notes to herself that the girl looks little like her relatives. Tired of the endless greetings, the girl notices how everyone is deep in conversation and barely eating. Then she turns her attention to the untouched sweets and begins to eat. While she eats ice cream, wondering if she should ask the Hunt family for a treat bag, the boy notices one of the guests looking thoughtful and asks him a question. The girl is surprised to hear the boy offer to take all the sweets with him, and the man ironically wonders if he can read minds. However, Emilia immediately warns that if the mother finds out about this, the family will lose face, and the culprit will be forever banned from eating sweets. The girl declares that she will finish everything so that nothing goes to waste, but she is warned again. Overeating has already cost her 3 days without dessert. Then she suddenly runs away, claiming that she urgently needs to go to the toilet, and the boy, clutching his stomach, says that everything is fine, although he clearly feels unwell. Stopping, she thinks with relief that she managed to do everything because only the servants were watching her. But after looking around, she realizes that she doesn't recognize the area and doesn't know where she ended up. The girl excitedly calls out to Mary Hunt, noticing her in the bushes. Mary explains that she also ate too many sweets, got lost on the way to the restroom, and now just decided to change the scenery. She then admits that she feels uncomfortable in noisy places. At the same time, the other one thinks that despite her promise to be friendly, her behavior may seem rude and decides to behave as calmly as possible, while Mary wonders if her girl is afraid because of her villainous appearance. The girl remarks on how picturesque the garden is, noting the variety of flowers, to which the other explains that the atmosphere in her family estate is completely different, although also beautiful. She comes to the conclusion that Mary's gardener is quite skilled, because the flowers bloom perfectly. Inspired, the girl asks to be introduced to the person who looks after the garden so she can get some advice, and in a fit of enthusiasm she grabs Mary's hand. She, embarrassed, admits that she looks after the flower beds herself, which surprises those present. One of the girls is surprised to learn that Mary personally takes care of the garden, while the other clarifies that she is only talking about flowers and some of the greenery. The girl enthusiastically praises the garden and asks Violetta about the secrets of care and the composition of the soil, making her noticeably nervous. Violetta, not knowing what to answer, asks the owner of the plot for advice, but she suddenly shakes her, wanting to explain everything. The girl says that she is trying to grow vegetables, specifying that the harvest began to die before the summer, and expresses her willingness to help, although she had not done this before. One of the girls invites her friend to inspect the beds personally, but she apologizes, saying that she can only listen to the story. The girl with the bandage thanks Mary for her help, explaining that thanks to her advice, the field came back to life, and both continue to water the plants with a smile. The girls happily note that thanks to Mary, the plants were saved, although it had previously seemed that they were doomed. At the same time, it is emphasized that Katarina also put in a lot of effort. The woman admires Mary's talent for reviving wilting plants, praises her modesty and ability to care for both flowers and vegetables. The girl learns that the expression green thumbs refers to a natural aptitude for growing plants and is praised for her abilities. She asks if she can come visit again, even if the field has already been restored, and receives a warm invitation to come at any time. The girl mentions the book, The Girl with Green Fingers, and the boy, although he has not read it, says that he remembers it when he looks at Mary. Her abilities cause everyone to sincerely admire her. One of the girls blames her stern appearance for the fact that people are afraid of her, and the boy notices that Mary has become more open, although at first she also scared him a little. Claude explains that Mary's mother was the second wife in the family and was not given a warm welcome after the death of the first mistress of the house. She died when Mary was only 5, and Valette notes that the girl always seemed shy to her. The interlocutors discuss how the experience affected Mary's self-esteem. The girl believes that she is now okay, and the boy agrees, although he cannot explain why. The girl notes that Keith has become more mature, and recalls the upcoming official confirmation of the engagement between Mary and Prince Alan. The boy, in turn, trusts his feelings. She asks him with a smile to remain her sweet little brother for now, and he readily agrees. The boy tells the girl that Alan is Gerald's younger twin brother and asks if she has heard about Mary's engagement to him. The girl, perplexed, clarifies, "Alan is the groom?" At this time, one of the girls runs away in a hurry, and the other explains that Mary's union with Prince Alan is very promising, because the Duke of Hunt has a high position and considerable wealth. The boy remembers that Alan Stewart is the frail and spoiled younger twin, one of the conquered characters in the game, who is often compared to his more gifted brother. Noel admits that he was defeated by both his brother and an ordinary girl, and the heroine realizes that she is now his rival. The girl explains to the boy that it was the cheerful heroine who awakened feelings in Alan, which is why he changed. Rivalry went away, envy passed, and relations with his brother improved. And in response, he notes that Alan is beautiful as he is. The voiceover tells us that Mary, who is in love with Alan, was very jealous of the heroine. Despite her perfect manners, she becomes an obstacle and resorts to bullying, like Katarina. The girl begins to ponder the endings in Alan's route, while the boy explains, "Alan is not in love with Mary. He treats her like a sweet little sister and truly appreciates her." A trembling Claude wonders why only Katarina dies, while another girl tearfully asks everyone to support Alan. In the end, Mary gives him up in favor of the heroine, after which everything ends with their happy wedding. The girl wonders in surprise, why does Mary, despite her similar role as a rival to Katarina, avoid a tragic end? She is shocked by how wonderful a hero Mary is, even when she is on the side of the enemy. The mysterious figure in the shadows angrily accuses Katarina of being a pathetic and unworthy villain, while the others note with annoyance that Alan still remains happy no matter how events unfold. The angry girl expresses dissatisfaction with the staff's work and is going to file a complaint with the production company, while the disguised character mockingly suggests that she try to be born as Katarina. Suddenly, the girl realizes Mary Hunt is her close friend, because in the game this character was proud and confident, although she had not drawn such a parallel before. The two girls speculate that Mary probably doesn't consider Catherine important and may not have even met her in person, since she doesn't know how to spell Prince Alan's name correctly. The girl asks what green thumbs means, and the boy explains that it is a natural gift for growing plants. He remembers their first meeting and praises Mary for her talent. The boy once again admires Mary's unusual gift, which gives her confidence and awakens feelings in her. The girl wipes away a tear, admitting that this is a truly touching story. The girl smiles as she remembers how Alan once said something wonderful to Mary, and confirms that the phrase was indeed from the game. She suddenly realizes that she has unwittingly repeated Alan's famous line and panics, deciding that it was a simple plagiarism, while those around her silently exchange glances. Noelle thinks that borrowing the words of such an ideal prince as Alan is not a problem, and the girl decides not to dwell on it, gaining cheerfulness. After a light knock on the door, she calls out to her sister and then reassures the worried woman that she is okay and prepares to go inside. The girl complains about the heat, because it is already the middle of summer, and then happily tells that her vegetable garden, restored thanks to Mary, receives enough sun and water and is now growing well. She explains that Mary Hunt, the Duke's daughter and a rival from the game, didn't get along with Katarina before, but now they communicate well, and she is sincerely glad that she found such a friend. Someone encourages everyone to work in the fields, and one girl confesses to another that she accidentally plagiarized a scene from a romantic game. The second one just smiles, saying that life is beautiful even like this. The girl is asked if her engagement is decided, and she happily announces that both she and Katarina are now the prince's brides, not hiding her happiness. The girl with brown hair wonders if Mary has met Prince Alan yet, and seeing the joy on her friend's face, she senses that something is wrong. The other confirms that yes, they have met. The woman asks how it went, while her interlocutor feels slightly guilty for stealing Prince Alan's famous phrase. She says that the man was very handsome and praised her efforts in gardening, just as he praises Katarina. The two women enthusiastically ask to continue the story and clarify what happened next. The girl shyly notes that that's all, and is surprised that the conversation ended so quickly. The girl feels both relieved and embarrassed to learn that Katarina is interested in her personally, while the other girl wonders if Katarina is genuinely interested and if anyone has mentioned her green fingers. Confused, she admits that she, too, would like to know if Alan had spoken about Mary's gift, especially after Katarina's words that she had told him everything herself. One of the girls anxiously asks the other if Mary really told Prince Alan something important, and she excitedly confirms. She explains that she was happy when Katarina-sama spoke to her, and immediately told Alan-sama everything, since he himself did not dare to confess. The girl muses out loud that Mary seems to like the prince but is not yet in love, while the other one sincerely apologizes to Alan. She asks if Catherine is alright and if she is hungry, to which the maid remarks that Mary is a lovely girl, and the other woman adds with a smile that, despite the engagement, Prince Alan still has a chance. The girl reflects that she wants to help the lovers become happy, even if she herself is hindering them. A woman nearby tells the other two that she supports them, and one of them thanks her with a smile. The maid informs the young lady that the prince has arrived and wishes to see her, while the peasants say that the harvest is almost complete. The woman asks Anna not to worry, reminding her that Gerald often visits and that she can safely let him in. However, Anna, breathing heavily, insists that this is not Prince Gerald. The girl feels a bad feeling, and then another girl excitedly tells her that the fourth prince, Alan, has come to see her. Everyone is amazed and confused. Noelle, arms crossed and frowning, waits as the girl and the maid rush in, apologizing for being late. An annoyed girl sharply reproaches someone for intruding without warning, while another notices with surprise that he is unusually straightforward. The maid apologizes, explaining that she was delayed due to preparations, after which Katarina Clays introduces herself and bows. The young man identifies himself as Alan Stewart. The narrative specifies that he fits the image of an attractive, conquerable character. The woman approaches Leon, saying she has come to discuss a matter concerning Mary Hunt, and he solemnly agrees. At this point, the girl remarks that although he is attractive, his manner seems smug compared to Gerald. The prince confirms that he has recently become engaged to Mary Hunt, and notes that she is aware of this. She smiles and says that she has heard of their close relationship. Noelle bursts in screaming, demanding that he stop seducing the girl after learning that this has become known. The thin magician suspiciously asks if someone is pretending not to know, and the girl thinks that the prince wants to remain with Mary only on friendly terms, not considering her as a bride. The girl explains that Mary refuses the prince, citing a promise to play with Katarina-sama, and when they meet, she only talks about her. The boy vehemently denies this, calling the accusations a lie. The pigtailed girl categorically denies the accusations, but others are sure that she used her attractiveness to mislead someone. The maid tells the boy that he has no charm, and another character adds that if he were more interesting, Mary would accept the invitation. The maid asks her mistress to remain calm, and reminds her that Mary has already promised to visit her. The girl accuses the boy of explaining all the attention to another person by his boring behavior. Violetta laughs with obvious defiance, while Leon assesses the situation as unfavorable, and the maid is internally tense. The girl reacts with restraint, after which an invisible voice declares that her words are regarded as a challenge. Alan formally challenges Katarina to a duel, and the two begin preparing for the competition. The maid, with a hint of alarm, clarifies that Alan allowed the girl to choose the format of the duel, wondering how the situation came to this. The girl reflects on the strangeness of the idea, a tree-climbing competition between a prince and a duke's daughter, and looks up at a tall tree. The boy explains that Alan had never climbed trees before and was confused when voicing the call, after which the girl confirms that it was Keith who distracted their mother so that she would not interfere. Leon asks if Alan is ready, while the others point out the danger of the rules. The first one to reach the top wins. Alan silently agrees. The girl explains that her maid will give the signal to start, to which the young man reluctantly nods. He insists on trying again, claiming that he was not ready the first time, and someone asks if the fight is over yet. The girl claims that the spoiled prince cannot beat her, formerly known as Monkey Girl, in tree climbing. Alan concedes her advantage, but declares that he will not give up. Leon grits his teeth and promises to win next time, and the girl runs away, screaming at him not to forget. Then Alan catches his breath, and the others ask if he's okay. It is noted that recently, Alan looks more cheerful and often comes to watch fights, after which they usually drink tea, which has brought them closer. The young man asks if everything is okay with Katarina, to which she absent-mindedly replies that it's nothing. The brothers meet by chance. One has difficulty finding words due to internal hostility, and the other notices with bewilderment that his brother is saying strange things. Leon states that he has come to fight Violetta, asking not to interfere, and Claude only clenches his fist in response. Leon adds that it is natural to visit his fiancée's house, despite his frequent visits. One of the boys remarks that Gerald never seems to win, while the girl in the apron worries that Alan might get angry, and another remarks that Gerald has lost his fighting spirit. Noelle insists that the match is not over yet, and believes that even he has a chance. The woman approaches Alan with a proposal to change the environment, but hesitates, not daring to voice the thought. One of the boys suggests changing the format of the duel, as their mother might get angry about climbing trees. At the same time, the girl tells her brother that their mother has already started to suspect something, and the other boy asks what to do next. The girl reflects that she cannot win in magic or cunning, and considers giving in on purpose to flatter Alan's ego, but then comes to the conclusion that defeat would be too humiliating. Behind her, Noelle watches her silently. The young man suggests playing chess or poker as safe options. Then the girl mentions musical instruments, after which the maid happily agrees to play the piano for a while. Noelle announces that he will go first, while the girl sits down at the instrument, preparing to perform. After the performance, she admits that she made mistakes, but is overall happy with the result, and two observers comment on the next participant and his playing skills. Noelle plays the same composition, thinking that although the melody is the same, the sound is completely different. The girl praises Alan's performance with admiration, but he modestly denies his talents, while she insists on his giftedness, recalling that Katarina was also of the same opinion. The boy angrily tells Alan that he knows he lost and asks him to stop making fun of him, while the girl calls Alan great, which irritates him. He considers her praise empty. The girl touches Alan, guessing that he came here, and meanwhile he sits, silently, hugging his knees. She asks if he came to laugh at her for her self-confidence in the game, and he asks if that's why she came. He admits that he thinks he's a pale copy of his talented twin brother, and she notes that he has extremely low self-esteem. Meanwhile, the other person says that his level was impressive, and wonders what level she's playing at. The girl recalls the biography of the game character, and the boy reflects that all his life he has been compared to Gerald, as if he took away all the talents, and now he does not understand how he can gain confidence. Mary believes that even kindness cannot relieve oppressive feelings, and the young man remembers how he was compared to Gerald all his life. Despite all his efforts, he always remained in the shadows. He admits that Gerald possesses almost superhuman talents, and Alan himself was no less capable. He was consistently among the best students. The girl recalls that in music, Gerald was second only to one person. His performances on the piano and violin were amazing, but she notes that everyone has their own purpose. The woman explains that Gerald and Alan have different strengths and weaknesses, and the man reluctantly agrees, adding that this is the natural order of things. The boy reflects that Gerald seems to be perfect. He excels in fencing and studies, and acts more confidently in the field, although ironically, he often spends time idle in his house. At this moment, someone nearby laughs quietly. Noelle is stunned to hear from the girl that she knows Gerald's weakness, the same one she noticed a couple of weeks ago. He then caught something that was slipping between his legs, afraid that Mary would be frightened. She remembers how she and Gerald were picking vegetables when it happened. The young man remembers seeing the fear in Gerald's eyes and his flight. Meanwhile, another man asks Katarina where she disappeared to, noting with annoyance that it happened at the most interesting moment. He calls Katarina, and the two boys, looking at each other, decide to hide in order to later test their guess about weakness. Noelle shouts out the command to act and drops the object in panic, while the masked man claims that there is no longer any doubt. The girl confidently hints that Gerald's weakness is about to be revealed, while the boy anxiously asks what exactly was just thrown. He notices the snakes in horror, and then explains that it is only a paper copy. It would be unwise to carry the real one around. He admits that he didn't expect such panic, and remembers that snakes were indeed the weakness. The girl confirms that his reaction proved everything. The hooded youth rejoices at discovering the flawless prince's weak point, and the thin mage notes that, despite the crude forgery, the data will be useful for future calculations. Noel notices that Katarina is clearly in high spirits, while the others are confused and watching the proceedings with concern. He asks with a smile if it is acceptable to throw such things at his fiancée, and, hearing that Katarina recently turned 9, explains that he was worried about their long absence. He begins to wonder if he has caused trouble, and fears exile for attempting to assassinate a royal, while the girl remarks that Duchess claims is probably having tea with Keith right now. Noel decides to greet the Duchess to talk about the competitions and snakes, but as he takes a step, he hears someone trying to stop him. He laughs, and the girl behind him calls out to him in amazement. Later, he admits that he is very tired. The woman realizes that she has exposed Gerald's weakness and smirks smugly, while the maid, lying on the bed, remembers how Gerald himself told his mother everything and was reprimanded. The girl is considering making a more realistic snake to carry around with her discreetly at the Magic Academy, while the boy is planning to use it to distract an enemy and escape from a possible sword strike. Meanwhile, the narrative notes that Alan has stopped challenging and has begun to communicate normally with Gerald, and the hero himself has focused on improving the snake props and preventing new flags of destruction.